Welcome to Negotiation with Alice, your negotiation podcast. Everything that you do where you need to get on the same page with someone else is a negotiation. So whether you have to negotiate a contract with someone, or you simply need your boss to sign off on that program that you'd like to implement, or you want to figure out how to rebalance the chore structure in your home, or talk about what vacation you want to go on. All of these things are negotiations. So in my podcast, we go over both personal and professional conversations, which all are considered negotiation, and I will give you tips on how to come out ahead. Welcome to the show. Welcome, listeners, to another episode of Negotiation with Alice. Today, I've got Sherry McClurkin here with us today. Sherry, welcome.
Thank you. Honored to be here. This is exciting.
I'm really excited because you're going to be talking about emotions and people pleasing. So can you share with my listeners a little bit about what you do and who you work with?
Oh my gosh, yes. So I come from being a therapist for over 10 years, so have all that training and all that, and I was specializing in trauma. And then I decided to be a coach so that I could have a wider reach, because therapists are state-bound. One of the things I learned along the way, because they don't really teach you this, is that certain things in your childhood are going to shape you a certain way, and the more kind of trauma, whatever your brain has decided is trauma, the more you're going to be shaped this way. So one of those things is kind of my ideal audience, which is the good girl, women who were, maybe they were the firstborn, so they were mama's little helper, or maybe they were one of many, 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 and they were in charge of the youngers. Maybe they were an only child, and they didn't have anything but adults to look towards. So again, they're going to be more in the good girl, which brings out perfectionism, and it brings out people-pleasing, it brings out avoiding conflict, because the role of the good girl is to keep everything calm. Don't upset anything, get the good grades, do as you're told, be the good girl. And that does not go well. It doesn't go well in any relationship, really. It doesn't go well in any relationship, whether we're talking about teams of people in corporate, or we're talking about friends, or we're talking about intimate partners. It doesn't go well in any of that.
Well, great. So I'd love to, it's funny because like you sort of described me, right? I'm the oldest of four.
Yep.
I was the person who was taking care of the other three younger ones. And, I was the one who was always doing the good things. I've like moved on from that role.
Yes, we can, right? That's why I'm here. That's why I do what I do, is to help people move away from help those women become full women who take up their space and use their voice and get through what I call, those are emotional blocks, that perfectionism, that people pleasing, that avoiding conflict, the almost imposter syndrome in a way also, because you're never really allowed to kind of take up your own space and use your own voice, because that might cause problems. The don't rock the boat kind of thought patterns and emotional ways.
So let's talk about how that personality type might struggle with negotiations.
Oh. One thing I would guess, and you would know better than this, Alice, but one thing I would guess you need in negotiations, and I know you need in an intimate partnership, is full honesty and transparency. You need full, authentic presence. A woman who is carrying with her some elements still of her good girl can't do any of those things. So being authentic means she has to be vulnerable and take a risk that something that she says or actually feels, something she expresses, something that she lists the other person has done or does or says that is bothersome, that's rocking the boat. That's potentially because her mind goes to, they're going to leave me, or there's going to be some sort of punishment. And that all depends, where her mind goes, all depends on what she experienced growing up. So if we had explosive parents, then we're going to be thinking about And it's not on purpose. And we don't even actually have that specific thought, but her mind is kind of trained to expect an explosion then if she expresses anything. And that's scary, right? And then we have to think about, as a child, you can't handle that, because as a child, children are fairly helpless. You know, their abilities are limited, their resources are limited, their where they can go or what they can do after they've had an explosion at them is very limited, and that piece of the brain that learned that is still active in many of these women. So it's not a conscious thought at all, but her nervous system is going to react as if there's going to be this explosion. So can't be authentic, can't be vulnerable, can't be honest.
And so basically that inner child that is afraid of that explosion is conflict averse and avoidant.
Yes.
And so they are basically not attacking problems in order to resolve them. They are avoiding them, ignoring them, letting them persist. Right?
And it's not a conscious thing. That's like the most, to me, that's one of the most important things that I work with people is like, it's not a conscious thing. It's not really even your fault. It's not their fault that they're that way. Their nervous system was trained. It's your responsibility to make a change, but it's not their fault that they're that way. And once they can kind of see it's not their fault, that it comes from childhood and their nervous system was kind of trained to be this way, it starts easing some of, that's one way I work with people to start easing that shame that's carried in there. There's an element of shame in there. So we can't be vulnerable also because we don't even really know who we are, right? What are we being vulnerable to? I'm not sure what my likes and dislikes are. I could say that this XYZ thing you said or thing you did or thing that's happening between us is upsetting to me, but I can't really tell you why because I don't actually know.
Right. Now, for someone who is experiencing this, Sherry, and they want to get better at negotiation, but you've got like some trauma in the background or it's just childhood stuff that's sort of lingering, what are some tips that you can give to our listeners so that they can begin to either be more aware of what is in the background driving their inability to negotiate what they want, or how can they improve their outcomes?
Right, so when I work with people, I have a 5-step process, RENEW, the word renew, and then I used an acronym. And the first two, one, the R is recognize and respect your emotions. So let's just start there. Let's just start recognizing and respecting. And respecting means it's not good or bad. It's not right and wrong. It's not, it's not any. It's information. I teach people to think of emotions as waves passing through. We know very well when we sit and think about it that emotions don't stay around very long. They change very quickly.
Yeah.
Right? So if we can kind of really learn that as our default, as opposed to when I feel an emotion, it's going to be here forever and it's telling me the truth about a situation, because that's just not it.
Right.
They're not facts. Emotions are not facts. So the R is recognize and respect your emotions and mindsets, and then the first E is engage in calm and mind, body, and emotions. So first would be those two, to engage in calm, because an activated nervous system that's in a level of, really it's a level of fight, flight, freeze, but it can be a lower level, so we were not really recognizing it as a level of fight, flight, freeze. But we learn to calm that nervous system because an activated nervous system isn't open to learning. An activated nervous system isn't open to anything but kind of protecting itself. And that's what it's really doing, is protecting itself. And once we can get past that, then we can kind of really notice, okay, when this happens, you have this kind of reaction. What's the mindset going on there? Well, the mindset is, I'm afraid of causing problems. Okay, that's great. Let's work with that. We're afraid of causing problems. So what do you think is going to happen if it's identified that you're causing problems? And then we can get into, let's see, I'm just really afraid they're not going to like me. Okay, we can work with that. Let's go a little bit deeper. Because it's one of the things I think, one of my skills that also got honed as being a therapist is I can go very deep with people very, very quickly, and we can get into the nurture new mindsets of the end and the second E of engage in emotional healing. And there's so many steps to take and engage in emotional healing that are very, very effective, and they don't take a lot of time. We might have to grieve that we didn't get the childhood that nurtured us the way we need to be nurtured. I'm not blaming anyone, it just happened that way. If we can grieve that and recognize that I am the way I am right now because this was shaped in me then, and I didn't receive what I needed because I was a unique individual, then we can start letting go of some of those anchors, if you will, that emotional anchor that kind of keeps that piece of us anchored into that childhood. Now, maybe we have some forgiveness we have to work through, and I work very carefully on forgiveness does not mean it's okay. Forgiveness does not mean we're saying, let them off the hook. We're not saying any of that. What we're saying is, again, there's emotional anchors that keep us anchored.
Right.
And we want to heal and let go of those emotional anchors, but in a good way that empowers us to move forward. Not feeling like, oh, an injustice has occurred and I have to let go of that injustice. No, not that at all. We want to take those things that happened in childhood and disconnect, because we've healed them, the emotional weight of them. We still have all those memories, all that stuff really happened, but we don't have to have that emotional weight around that. And what that ripple effect then creates a woman who can be honest. And she still may have a flood of emotions that happens, but now she knows how to handle those emotions in the moment. Now she knows that those emotions are valid regardless of how the other person reacts, and that other person's reaction is not their problem, honestly. The bottom line, it's not their problem.
And forgiveness is always about, it's for yourself. You're
Yes.
you're freeing yourself from
Yes.
that heavy, heavy burden that
Yes.
you carry with you as long as you don't forgive. So you're trying to release yourself. It's not
Yes.
to release the other person.
Oh, no.
It's all for your own sanity and health, right?
Absolutely, because the other person's not carrying that emotional baggage that you're carrying. They may not even know that you're carrying it. As if it was long enough ago, and if the person was like, there's a lot of different reasons why we may need to do forgiveness, and I don't want to step on anybody's things. The other person may not even be aware that there was an issue, or they've shoved it in some compartment in their head, and so you're the one carrying that weight, but you didn't do anything.
Right. It's funny because you mentioned that, because we have family calls with my parents and my siblings, and we're always reminiscing. And the funny thing is, I will bring up stuff that was upsetting to me when I was 5 or 6 or 7, and my parents are like, I don't even remember that happening.
Right.
I have no idea, and I've carried it for 50 plus years. Like, oh, when you did this, it hurt my feelings. And they're like, I don't even remember ever saying that, or I don't remember that I ever did that, right? So it's just the daily thing. Someone's annoyed, they're irritated, they might say something to their kid, and all of a sudden that child takes it a certain way.
Yes.
That thorn is planted in their heart. It goes on for decades. They're like, oh, this hurt me so much. And then in the meantime, like you said, they don't even know. They're like, I don't even remember I said that. I was probably having a bad day.
Right. Having a bad day, or, to be honest, I'm an eldest child too. I was in the good girl role. This is why I'm like, I get this stuff. I was there. And just like you, Alice, I've healed from so very much of that, which is why I want to work with other women so that they can see there is healing. There is healing to be had. And one of the things that I love to also remind people of, one of the techniques that I bring, is the techniques that I bring for the emotional healing, which is the second E of Renew, engage in emotional healing, is we're not reliving any of that. We're not reliving it. Because people, I think that's one of the reasons why people delay or maybe don't even get help at all, is because I don't want to go there. I don't want to relive it. You're right. You don't actually need to relive it. You don't need to rehash it. You don't need to do any of that to be able to heal from it. One of the things I teach people to do when we're getting into that really deep emotional thing is to recognize what your needs are, because we weren't trained to recognize our own needs. When you're a kid, you need adults to come in and take care of your needs. You don't know your needs.
Right.
Think of babies. They're crying. They may have different cries, but they couldn't, even if they were verbal at that time, they couldn't even really tell you exactly what their need was. They might be able to tell you, hey, my belly aches. That may mean they're hungry, or that could mean their belly aches, right? I mean, so they don't even have that distinction. You got to think about it. Kids just don't know. Their brains don't know. Their brains aren't at that point to know. So part of what I do is help adults, adult women, primarily understand, recognize what their needs. What did you need? What did you need? And then help them. I have some exercises where we go through, well, then let's help you right now, you adult person, fulfill that need. And there's different ways that I take people through to do that. Again, also we can get to that point where the boundaries is another part of being able to do really good negotiations. Yep. And like I said, in any relationship, it doesn't have to be a work or team or corporate relationship. Any relationship, we need to know what our values are, what our needs are, and have those boundaries that protect them. Not expect the other person to know, because that's another thing that the good girl wants everyone just to know what they need. That's just not how people work. Right. Everyone's involved in their own needs. We have to know what our needs are and our values are and have the boundaries in place to protect them, and that's part of what I help women to do also as part of this healing. To have those boundaries. Let's go of the perfectionism. What's going to come out is not going to be perfect. You're not going to be perfect in the process, and that's okay because it's a process. It's a journey. It's a learning. We have to be open. I can teach people to not be afraid of their emotions, basically. Not be afraid of your emotions. They come and go. It's okay. They're just information.
Yeah. So let's go over renew again. Can you let us know what each step means?
Yes. RENEW. First, the R is recognize and respect your emotions. You start there. This first E is engage in calm in mind, body, and emotions. So I teach neuroscience-based techniques that bring calm to the nervous system very quickly. And not only that, but they actually create new brain pathways that instead of this thing happening or this thing being said, we go to anxiety. This thing happening, this being said, we're teaching the brain to default to calm. So we're teaching the brain that calm is the mode we want to almost always be in, as much as possible.
Right.
And not stay so long in the fear or the anxious or whatever it is that's coming up. So I teach neuroscience methods to do that. That's the first E, engage in calm in mind, body, emotion. N is nurture new mindsets. So I teach them, look, you're used to thinking this way. Say all none. All none is a very prevalent, often used, like it has to be this way or this way. It's either right or it's wrong. Let's break through that. Now the all none is there for a reason. It was developed in childhood. Now let's look at why and how that comes up for you. And let's look at there's actually a lot of space in the middle. The truth is probably really in the middle. You can kind of think of, I'll finish this first because I get distracted. The second E of renew is engage and embrace emotional healing. And the W is walk in wholeness with Christ, because that's the perspective I come from.
Wonderful.
And one of the, anyway, I forgot my thought. That's okay. Go ahead.
So I'm very happy that you're here to share these tools with people, because clearly if you have blocks, it prevents you from being the masterful negotiator that you can be. If you're stuck in people pleasing, then you end up not asking for as much. If you're stuck in people pleasing, you don't set your boundaries as tightly as you need to, right? You don't really. What you're talking about is while you're protecting yourself, you're not protecting yourself really authentically. No, because you're not asking for the boundary that you actually need, and you're letting people trample on it because you're people pleasing, and you're not wanting to say, hey, by the way, can you not do this? Or, hey, by the way, can you not call me on my work cell phone after 9 p.m., right? And you're taking calls because you feel like, well, I don't really want to take the call, but I don't want my coworker to get upset at me, and I don't feel comfortable telling them not to do that. right?
Right.
And so all these things are preventing people from becoming masterful negotiators.
So I would make one tweak in something that you just said, Alice, and I love that you said it because this is pretty common. And a real healthy boundary has nothing to do with the other person. So in your example of the coworker, let's assume it's a coworker. If it's a boss, it's a little bit more complicated. If it's a coworker, your teammate, you're trying to get something done, and the agreement is there. First, we have to have the agreement, right? We have to have the agreement not to call me after whatever, 9:30, whatever it is. Second, when they still do it, we simply have to say, we don't have to say anything, really. We have to tell them up front that, and if we can't keep this, this is what I'm going to do. Because their phone could be shut off.
Right.
Right? We don't want to give our power away to other people, because that's exactly what they've spent, that people-pleasing, the good girl has spent their entire lives giving away their power and letting other people take that power from them, because that's what they were trained to do as a child. And I'm not blaming anybody. This is just the way it worked out in their particular family system or lack of family system.
Yeah. And, another way that people give away their power is when they say, well, you made me mad or you made me yell, or, right? Because when you do that, that's giving away your power.
Yes.
Right.
And I default to that sometimes too. You made me so mad. And I'm like, that is not what you would let a client do, Sherry.
I know.
No, this situation upsets something in me that I need to work on so that I don't go to that, because that's not going to help us.
Right.
That immediate reaction to anger, or that, or we want to outburst at them or whatever it is, it's not helpful. It's
Right.
not helpful. Right?
Exactly.
Particularly if you're trying to negotiate something, whether, again, with a friend, this is the pattern that so many couples get into. They get stuck in these patterns. The other piece is not listening.
Exactly. That's a whole other thing.
Right? They aren't taught to listen.
I know.
That's really half of what you do, Alice, is teach people to listen.
It is true. It is true. It's funny because it's so cliche. It sounds like it's so easy that everyone can do it, but almost no one is doing it.
Right. Yeah.
So, well, wonderful. Thank you for being a guest today, Sherry. If anyone wanted to reach out to you, to work with you, how can they find you?
Oh, I love that question. So, SherryMcClurkin.com. The easiest thing, though, is to find me on LinkedIn or Facebook. I'm pretty active on both of those. And it's really, my name is fairly unique. So there aren't very many Sherry McClurkins. And my Facebook, it is Sherry.McClurkin, and my LinkedIn is Sherry McClurkin Brain Tamer, but you'll be able to figure it out, because I'm the emotional blocks buster. That's the I don't know the right word. There's a word that would be used to describe that. That's the name, my slogan, whatever, emotional blocks buster, coach, speaker, writer. So it's pretty easy to find me because my name is not common.
Awesome. Thank you again, Sherry, for being with us today. Thank you, listeners, for tuning in to yet another episode of Negotiation with Alice. Until next time.